video we studied up to page number 45 of the lesson Maternity. In this video we are going to study the remaining portion. Before we go to the lesson, I should take once more to the meaning of the difficult words here. Arid, very dry, unangi varanda. Wasteland, a piece of land that is not used in any way, തരിശ് ഭൂമി. Rang out, to be heard loudly, ഉറക്കെ കേൾക്കുക. Sneaking, to go quietly, trying to avoid being seen or heard, ഒളിച്ച് പോകുക. Fetching, to steal something, മോഷ്ടിക്കുക. Rake about, to search thoroughly, നന്നായി അന്വേഷിക്കുക. Sob, cry, തേങ്ങുക. Desperately, extremely, നിരാശയോടെ. Gaze, to look at something for a long time, തുറച്ചു നോക്കുക. Knickknacks, small decorative ornament objects, especially of the house, കൗതുക വസ്തുക്കൾ. Charms, an object that is thought to have magic power, മന്ത്രച്ചരട്, അതുപോലുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങൾ. Charms, രക്ഷ എന്നൊക്കെ നമ്മൾ പറയും. ഓക്കെ. Mocked, to laugh at someone in a funny and kind manner, കളിയാക്കിച്ചിരിക്കുക. Squint eyes, കോങ്കണ്ണ്. Long, wished, ആഗ്രഹിക്കുക. To flee, run away, ഓടിയൊളിക്കുക. Orientals, relating to East or Southeast Asia, പൗരസ്ത്യ, തെക്ക് കിഴക്കൻ ഏഷ്യക്ക. But, refuse to change one's mind, മനസ്സ് മാറ്റാതിരിക്കുക. Distress, deep feeling of sadness, ദുഃഖം. Awful, shocking and unpleasant, ഞെട്ടിപ്പിക്കുന്നതും സങ്കടകരവുമായ. Stumble, about to fall while walking or running, വീഴാൻ തുടങ്ങുന്ന. Tenderly, in a gentle, loving manner, വാത്സല്യത്തോടെ. Lane, narrow road, ഇടുങ്ങിയ പാത. Courtesy, polite behavior, വിനയത്തോടെയുള്ള പെരുമാറ്റം. Hesitatingly, not to speak or act for a while because one is uncertain, മടിച്ച്. Root, firmly fixed, ഉറപ്പിച്ച. Redden, to become red. Threshold, the floor of an entrance to a building, ഉമ്മറപ്പടി. Wicker cradle, wooden baby bed, തടിത്തൊട്ട്. Cocking, to move a part of the body in a particular direction, ശരീരം ഒരു വശത്തേക്ക് ചലിപ്പിക്കുക. Graciously, pleasantly and politely, സന്തോഷം നിറഞ്ഞ ലാളിത്യത്തോടെ. Chubby, fat, കൊഴുത്തരൻ. So these are the meaning of these difficult words given in the remaining paragraph. So we shall move once more to the text. The country spread out before him in arid wasteland covered with refuse. No one rang out somewhere. The sound reminded him that he had eaten nothing since the day before. He would have to go sneaking about the streets, round cafeterias, fetching some half-eaten roll left on a plate, or else rake about in the garbage for what a dog would not have eaten. Suddenly, the life seemed to him full of sorrows that he covered his face with his hands and began to sob desperately. He felt for a while life meaningless. The country spread out before him in arid wasteland covered with refuse. There was no place to go. In front of him there was only wasteland covered with refuse, and it is very much dry. And what was the time then? It was noon time. Suddenly he remembered he hadn't eaten anything that day. By the time he would have gone to the streets to steal some food. But this day, what did he do? He had to go to the neighboring people. He had to go to the Anatolians to feed his baby child. So he didn't get the time to search for his food. So he remembered he hadn't eaten anything that day. അപ്പോൾ ആ ദിവസം അന്ന് ആ സമയം വരെ അവനൊന്നും കഴിച്ചില്ല. എന്താ കാരണം? സാധാരണ കേസിൽ ഹി വുഡ് ഹാവ് ഗോൺ, അവൻ പോകുമായിരുന്നു. എന്തിന്? എവിടെയെങ്കിലുമൊക്കെ സ്ട്രീറ്റിൽ പോകുമായിരുന്നു. അറൗണ്ട് കഫേറ്ററസ്, ഹോട്ടലുകളിൽ അവൻ പോകുമായിരുന്നു. ഇൻ ഓർഡർ ടു സ്റ്റീൽ സംതിങ് ഫ്രം ദ പ്ലേറ്റ്സ്. അപ്പം പാത്രങ്ങളിൽ നിന്ന് ഉള്ള എന്തെങ്കിലുമൊക്കെ സ്റ്റീൽ ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടി അവന് പോകുമായിരുന്നു. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഗാർബേജിൽ സെർച്ച് ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടി പോകുമായിരുന്നു. ഇൻ ഓർഡർ ടു ഫൈൻഡ് വാട്ട് വാസ് ലെഫ്റ്റ് what was left there, or the dog wouldn't have eaten. A dog would have left for him. അപ്പം നായ്ക്കൾ അവശേഷിപ്പിച്ച എന്തെങ്കിലും ഉണ്ടോ എന്ന് നോക്കി തപ്പിപ്പറക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി പോകുമായിരുന്നു. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അവൻ ഏതെങ്കിലും പാത്രത്തിൻ്റെ ബാക്കി തപ്പി പോകുമായിരുന്നു. പക്ഷേ ഇപ്രാവശ്യം എന്താ പറ്റി? ഹി ഹാഡ് ടു ഗോ ടു ദ നെയ്ബറിങ് വില്ലേജ്, village of the Anatolians, in order to get milk for his baby brother. അവൻ്റെ സ്വന്തം സഹോദരന് വേണ്ടി ആഹാരം കൊടുക്കാനായിട്ട് അവന് പോകേണ്ടി വന്നു. സോ ഹി forgot to take food that day. Suddenly life seemed to him so full of horrors that he covered his face with his hands and he began to sob desperately. So he found himself helpless. He became very sad. Life seemed to him full of horrors. And look at the plight of that small boy. What did he do? He covered his face with his hands and started to cry in a desperate manner, in a helpless manner. അവൻ്റെ ഒരു അവസ്ഥ നോക്കി. കൊച്ചു പയ്യൻ ജീവിതം നിറയെ ഭയങ്കരമായ പേടിപ്പെടുത്തുന്ന അവസ്ഥയാണല്ലോ എന്ന് കണ്ടിട്ട് അവനെന്ത് ചെയ്യുന്നേ? ആ മുഖം പൊത്തി അവൻ കരയാൻ തുടങ്ങി. Think about the plight of that boy who had to remain starving for a day, who had to remain there carrying his baby brother on his shoulder without any food. അപ്പോൾ ആഹാരമൊന്നുമില്ലാതെ ഒരു ദിവസം മുഴുവൻ ഇങ്ങനെ പട്ടിണി കിടക്കുന്ന ഒരു കൊച്ചു പയ്യൻ്റെ ഒരു അവസ്ഥയൊന്ന് ചിന്തിച്ചു നോക്കി. അതേപോലെ തന്നെ ആ സ്വന്തം സഹോദരനെ തോളയിൽ ചാരി പിടിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് നിൽക്കുന്ന ഒരു 14 വയസ്സുള്ള ഒരു കുട്ടിയുടെ അവസ്ഥ. Think about how horrible it is, how tragic, how much tragic it is. So when he raised his head, a man stood before him, gazing down upon him. So he started to cry. He couldn't help crying. He started to cry. And when he raised his head, what was there? Who was there? A man was standing in front of him. And Michale recognized that man. He was a Chinaman. And what was he? Why did Michale recognize him? എന്തുകൊണ്ടാണ് മിഖാലി അവനെ റെക്കഗ്നൈസ് ചെയ്തത്? He used to sell paper knickknacks and charms in the neighboring village. So that Chinaman, how did he earn his living? He earned his living by selling paper knickknacks and charms in the neighboring village. So shall write for you certain questions. Look here. Again, there are certain other meanings here. Gold brocade, cloth with designs of gold thread, സ്വർണ്ണ എംബ്രോയിഡറി ചെയ്ത വസ്ത്രം, അസ്റ്റോണിഷ്മെൻറ്റ്, സർപ്രൈസ്, അത്ഭുതം, ഫാമിഷ്, എക്സ്ട്രീംലി ഹംഗ്രി, വിശന്ന് വലഞ്ഞ, സ്കെൽറ്റോണിക്, വിച്ച് ലുക്സ് ലൈക്ക് എ സ്കെൽറ്റൺ, മെലിഞ്ഞുണങ്ങിയ, ജസ്റ്റ് എ മൂവ്മെൻറ്റ് വിത്ത് പാർട്ട് ഓഫ് യുവർ ബോഡി ടു എക്സ്പ്രസ് ഇമോഷൻസ്, ആകെ കാണിക്കുക, മോഡസ്റ്റ്, എളിമ, ഫ്ലാറ്റ്, എ പീസ് ഓഫ് ക്ലോത്ത് യൂസ് ഫോർ കവറിങ് ആൻഡ് ക്ലോസിങ് തിങ്സ്, പുറംപാളി, ഗ്ലട്ടണസ്, ഈറ്റിംഗ് ഓർ ഡ്രിങ്കിങ് മോർ ദൻ വൺ നീഡ്, വിശന്ന് ആർത്തി പൂണ്ട, സക്ലിംഗ് ടു ഡ്രോ മിൽക്ക് ഫ്രം ദ ബ്രസ്റ്റ്, മുല കുളിക്കുക. ഓക്കെ, so my questions. How did Michele find his food those days? How did Michele find his food those days? That is question number 1. Okay, now next question. So coming to the next question. What did he do when he found his life full of horrors? So what's the answer? When he found his life full of horrors, he began to sob desperately, covering his face with his hands. So that is the second question. And again, there are certain other meanings here. Look at the meanings of those words. What are those words? Arid, very dry. Wasteland, a piece of land that is not used in any way. Tharishupumi, rang out, to be heard loudly, rakakaka, sneaking, to go quietly, trying to avoid being seen or heard. Olichu povuga, fetching, to steal something, moshtika, rake about, to search thoroughly nannai, anishka, sob, cry, thenguga. Desperately, extremely, nirashiyade. So these are the some of the words here. Okay, coming to the next paragraph. When he raised his head, a man stood before him, gazing down upon him. Michele recognized a Chinaman who often came to the camp to sell paper knickknacks and charms which no one ever bought from him anyway. Often they mocked him because of his color and his squint eyes. So, after a while, Michele stopped crying. He raised his head and he saw a man in front of him. And Michele suddenly identified that man, that Chinaman who used to sell paper knickknacks and charms in the village. And did anybody buy from him those paper knickknacks and charms? No. Why? Because they were so much affected by poverty. So what did they do? They only mocked him because of his color and squint eyes. They used to make fun of him because they were when he's on seeing his color, on seeing his squint eyes, the children, they felt him very funny. So they mocked him. They only mocked him. They did not buy any paper knickknacks or charm from him. അപ്പം മിഖാലി അയാളെ ഐഡൻറ്റിഫൈ ചെയ്തു. അയാൾ ആരായിരുന്നു? ഒരു ചൈനമാനായിരുന്നു. അയാൾ എന്താ വിൽപ്പന നടത്തുന്നത്? ടു സെൽ പേപ്പർ നിക്നാക്സ് ആൻഡ് ചാംസ്, കൗതുക വസ്തുക്കൾ, അതേപോലെ പേപ്പർ കൊണ്ടുള്ള കൗതുക വസ്തുക്കൾ, അതേപോലെ തന്നെ എന്താണ് ചാംസ്. അപ്പോൾ പേപ്പർ കൊണ്ടുള്ള കൗതുക വസ്തുക്കളും ചാംസും ഒക്കെ വിൽപ്പന നടത്തുന്ന ഒരു മനുഷ്യൻ. Suddenly, Michele recognized him. No one ever bought anything from him because they were so much affected by poverty and they had no money. They only mocked him away because of his color and squint eyes. അവൻ്റെ ആ കണ്ണിറം, അതേപോലെ അവൻ്റെ സ്ക്വിൻ്റ് ഐസ്. വാട്ട് ഐ മീൻ ബൈ സ്ക്വിൻ്റ് ഐസ്? കോങ്കണ്ണ് അല്ലേ? ആ കോങ്കണ്ണും ഒക്കെ കാരണം അവനെ അവർ ഒഴിവാക്കി കളിയാക്കി വിടത്തേ ഉള്ളൂ. അപ്പോൾ they only mocked him away. വെറുതെ കളിയാക്കി വിടത്തേ ഉള്ളൂ. മോക്ക്, to laugh at someone in a funny way, unkind manner, കളിയാക്കി ചിരിക്കുക, സ്ക്രീൻ ഐസ്, കോങ്കണ്ണ്. So the next question, what did the Chinaman do in the camp? What did the Chinaman do in the camp? Look at the question. What did the Chinaman do in the camp? Or how did he earn his living? How did he earn his living? What did the Chinaman do in the camp, or how did he earn his living? He earned his living by selling paper knickknacks and charms, but nobody would buy from him. And why did children mock him away? Why did the children mock him away? Why did the children mock him away? Sorry. Because of his color and squint eyes, the children would mock him away. Again, Michele saw that he was looking gently down at him and moving his lips as though to speak. Finally, the Chinaman said, "You must not cry, boy. Come with me." In a shy manner, with shy, the Chinaman invited Michele, "Come with me." With shy, Chinaman invited Michele to come with him. "You must not cry, boy. Come with me." So, Chinaman invited Michele to his house. Michele's only answer was to shake his head negatively. He longed to flee. He wished to flee. He had heard so many horrors about the cruelty of the Orientals. So, why did he wish to flee? Why did Michele wish to flee? Because why did Michele wish to flee? Because he had heard about the cruelty of those Orientals, so he wished to run away. He only nodded his head in a negative manner. അപ്പോൾ അവനെ ആ ചൈനക്കാരൻ വിളിച്ചു, "നീ കരയണ്ട, നീ എൻ്റെ കൂടെ വാ." പക്ഷേ മിഖാലി ഒന്നും പറഞ്ഞില്ല. മിഖാലി തലകുലുക്കിയതേ ഉള്ളൂ. അവൻ ആഗ്രഹിച്ചു എന്തിനാണ്? To escape from there. He wished to escape from there because he had heard about the cruelties of Orientals, the people from Middle East, from East Asia, people from East Asia. See, Orientals, I have given you the meaning. What's the meaning? Relating to East or Southeast Asia, Paurasya. So, now, again, what is in the next paragraph? Yet the man remained there and did not budge. So, being in great distress, Michele followed him. What more awful things could happen to him? As he walked along, he stumbled weakly and almost fell with the child. Chinaman came to him and, taking the baby in his arms, tenderly pressed it to him. Shall I read it once again? Yet the man remained there and did not budge. So being in great distress, Michele followed him. What more awful thing could happen to him? As they walked along, he stumbled weakly and almost fell with the child. Chinaman came to him and, taking the baby in his arms, tenderly pressed it to him. So, when Chinaman invited Michele to come with him, to go with him, Michele wanted to escape from there. He nodded his head in a negative to give a negative answer, to say no. He nodded his head. But the Chinaman did not move back. What did he do? He still remained there, inviting Mikhail to his house. Look here, budge. What's the meaning? Budge. Refuse to change one's mind. മനസ്സ് മാറ്റാതെ ഇരിക്കുക. So he did not change his mind. He continued inviting Mikhail to his house, and Mikhail at last followed him. Mikhail was forced to obey that Chinaman. He followed him. What more? Why? Thinking this. What more awful thing could happen to me? What more horrible things could happen to me? Whatever happened in my life were so much awful. So nothing more awful is going to happen to me. So he decided to follow the Chinaman. As they walked along, remember, Mikhail was very weak. He was about to fall down. And what did Chinaman do? Chinaman came to him, took that baby child from his arm and pressed it tenderly against him. So Mikhail remained there. He remained there. Chinaman remained there. He was firm in his. He remained there, inviting Mikhail to his house, and Mikhail was in great distress, in a desperate position. He was very much worried. He did not know what to decide. He found it difficult to take a decision. He was in distress. മിക്കാലിക്ക് ഭയങ്കര ഒരു എന്ത് ചെയ്യണമെന്ന് പോലും അറിയാൻ വയ്യാത്ത അവസ്ഥ. അറ്റ് ലാസ്റ്റ് മിക്കാലെ ഫോളോഡ്. മിക്കാലെ എന്ത് ചെയ്തു? ഫോളോ. വാട്ട് ഐ മീൻ ബൈ ഫോളോ? പിന്തുടരുക. ഫോളോ. മിക്കാലെ followed him, thinking that what more awful could happen to me? ഇനി ഇതിൽ കൂടുതൽ എന്ത് സംഭവിക്കാനാണ്? And they continued walking. Mikhail followed the Chinaman to his home, and while walking to his home, Mikhail was about to fall once. And what did Chinaman do? In a kind manner, he took the baby in his arm and tenderly pressed it to him. അപ്പം മിക്കാലി ഇങ്ങനെ ചൈനമക്കാരൻ്റെ വീട്ടിലോട്ട് പോകുമ്പം മിക്കാലി ഇന്ന് വീഴാൻ തുടങ്ങി, വേച്ചുപോയി. ആൻഡ് Chinaman, what did he do? He take that baby child in his arm tenderly, in a very much compassionate, in an affectionate manner. കുഞ്ഞിനെ എന്ത് ചെയ്തു? വളരെ സ്നേഹത്തോടെ ആ ചൈനക്കാരൻ എന്ത് ചെയ്തു? അങ്ങ് കയ്യിൽ എടുത്തു. They crossed several empty lots, and then the man took a little lane that led them to a sort of wooden cabin surrounded by a very small garden. He stopped before the door and clapped his hands twice. A few light steps inside, and a tiny person came to open the door. Seeing the man, her face reddened, and then a smile lit it up. He made a brief courtesy to them as Mikhail remained there, hesitatingly rooted to the threshold. The Chinaman said to him, Come in then, do not be afraid, this is my wife. Once again they crossed several empty lots, and then the man took a little lane that led them to a sort of wooden cabin surrounded by a very small garden. He stopped before the door and clapped his hands twice. A few light steps inside, and a tiny person came to open the door. Seeing the man, her face reddened, and then a happy smile lit it up. He made a brief courtesy to them as Mikhail remained there, hesitatingly rooted to the threshold. Chinaman said to him, Come in, then do not be afraid, this is my wife. So they had to walk for a while. They had to walk for a They had to walk for a while. They crossed several streets, several empty houses, and then they came. Then they started walking through a narrow road, and then they started walking through a narrow road, and they reached a small wooden cabin. And that wooden cabin was surrounded by a small garden. So Michaeli and the Chinaman, that walked for a while, walked for some distance. They walked some distance, and then they reached a narrow road. And walking through that road, they reached a small wooden cabin surrounded by a small garden. He stopped before the door, clapped his hands twice. So after stopping at the door, he clapped his hands 2 times. Then he heard a few light steps inside the house. A tiny person came to open the door. So when he clapped his hand, somebody inside that house heard it, and a tiny person came to open the door. അപ്പോൾ ആരോ ഒരകത്ത് ഒരു ചെറിയൊരു മനുഷ്യരൂപം പ്രത്യക്ഷപ്പെട്ടു. അവർ കതക് തുറക്കാനായിട്ട് വന്നു. Seeing the men, there were 2 people there, Michaeli and the Chinaman. On seeing both of them, her face reddened. She became very happy, and then a happy smile lit it up. She smiled at them. Her face reddened, maybe because she was very happy on seeing them. And she made a brief courtesy to them. She made a polite show of respect. To them. And as Michaeli remained there, hesitatingly rooted to the threshold. So the Chinaman was comfortable, but Michaeli was hesitant at first. He was still standing at the doorstep. അപ്പോൾ മിക്കാലി ഹെസിറ്റൻ്റ് ആയിരുന്നു. മിക്കാലി മടിച്ചിങ്ങനെ നിൽക്കുകയാണ്. പക്ഷേ ചൈനമാൻ എങ്ങനെയാണ്, കംഫർട്ടബിൾ ആയിരുന്നു. ചൈനമാൻ മിക്കാലിയോട് പറഞ്ഞു, കം ഇൻസൈഡ്, ദിസ് ഈസ് മൈ വൈഫ്, ഡോണ്ട് ബി അഫ്രെയ്ഡ്. So Michaeli was invited by the Chinaman. He asked Michaeli, come inside, this is my wife, do not be afraid. So again, let us write those questions here. The sixth question: how did Chinaman the house of the Chinaman look like? How did the house of the Chinaman look like? Again, what about the next question? Seventh question: how did Chinaman's wife behave on seeing them? So how did the house of the Chinaman look like? It is a small house. It is a small wooden house, and it is surrounded by a garden. Again, how did she behave on seeing them? Her face reddened, and she became very happy. She made a brief show of respect to them. ഷോ ഓഫ് റെസ്പെക്റ്റ്, ഒരു നമ്മൾ തലകുനിച്ചൊക്കെ കാണിക്കത്തില്ലേ, സൂചകമായിട്ട് നമ്മൾ തലകുനിച്ചൊക്കെ കാണിക്കത്തില്ലേ, അതേ തരത്തിൽ അത്തരത്തിലൊരു ബഹുമാനം അവരോട് ആദരവ് കാണിച്ചു. Then hesitatingly rooted to a threshold. See the meaning of the word threshold? Floor of an entrance, ഉമ്മറപ്പടി എന്ന് നമ്മൾ വേണമെങ്കിൽ പറയാം. ഓക്കെ. Michele went into the room. So coming to your next paragraph, Michele went into the room. Michele went into the room. Rather large it seemed. It is a large room, separated in the middle by a colored paper screen. It is also clean and neat, though very poor looking. In the corner she noticed a wicker cradle. "This is my baby," said the young woman, cocking her head graciously to one side and smiling at him. "He is very tiny and very beautiful. Come and see." So Michele entered that house. And how was his house? It was large, and the room was separated in the middle by a colored paper screen. It was a very neat and tiny, clean room, but it was poor looking, and there was a wicker cradle there. So, what kind of a room, what kind of a house was it? What kind of a room was it? A large room, separated in the middle by a colored paper screen. It was clean, it was neat, but poor looking, and there was a wicker cradle on the corner of that room. What do you mean by wicker cradle? ഒരു തൊട്ടി, ഒരു തടി തൊട്ടിൽ, ഒരു തടി തൊട്ടിൽ. അപ്പോൾ എങ്ങനെയുള്ള വീടായിരുന്നത്? വലിയ മുറിയാണ്, നടുക്ക് കളർ പേപ്പർ കൊണ്ട് പാർട്ടീഷൻ ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. അതേപോലെ വൃത്തിയുള്ള മുറിയാണ്, പക്ഷേ കണ്ടാലൊരു ഒരു ആഡംബരം ഉള്ള ഒരു വീടല്ല. പിന്നെ എന്താണ്, ഒരു സാധാരണ പാവപ്പെട്ട അവസ്ഥയിലുള്ള ഒരു വീട്. ആൻഡ് young woman cocking, moving her head in a gracious manner, smiling at Michele, told him, "This is my baby. It's very tiny, very beautiful, and come and see." So that young woman, wife of Chinaman, invited Michele to see their child. And in her opinion, how was the child? He is very tiny. He was very tiny and very beautiful. So Michele's wife invited Chinaman's wife invited Michele to see his baby, see their baby, and that baby was very tiny, but it is also beautiful. അപ്പം വന്ന ഉടനെ ഇതെൻ്റെ കുഞ്ഞാണെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ട് ആ ഒരു സ്ത്രീയെ അവർ തലയൊന്ന് ഒരു വശത്തേക്ക് ഒരു ആദരവോടെ, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഒരു ആഢ്യ ഭാവത്തോടു കൂടി ഒന്ന് ചരിച്ചിട്ട് അവനെ നോക്കി ചിരിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് പറഞ്ഞു, "ഇത് എൻ്റെ കുഞ്ഞാണ്, വന്നാട്ടെ, നോക്കിക്കട്ടെ, നല്ല ഒരു സുന്ദര കുടമാണവൻ" എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ് അവനെ ഇൻവൈറ്റ് ചെയ്യുക. Michele went closer and silently admired it. Michele went up closer to watch the child. He silently admired it. A chubby baby, but lately out of the darkness of the maternal body, slept peacefully, covered with a gold brocade cloth like a little king. So he was sleeping like a little king, and that baby was covered with a golden embroidered cloth. Michele went up closer and silently admired it. A chubby baby, but lately out of the darkness of the maternal body, slept peacefully, covered with a gold brocade cloth like a little king. That child looked like a little king to Michele. He was covered with a golden embroidered cloth, and he was sleeping peacefully. But lately, out of the darkness of the maternal body, a chubby baby. So it was a fat baby, and he came. Mother was sleeping. Mother was lying with the chubby baby, and after a while, giving it milk. What did the mother do? Mother leave her place, and the baby was sleeping in a peaceful manner. അപ്പോൾ ഇവിടെ എന്താ സംഭവിച്ചത്? മിക്കാലി കുറച്ചുകൂടി അടുത്തോട്ട് ചെന്നു ആ കുഞ്ഞിനെ നിശബ്ദമായിട്ട് അട്മയ. വാട്ട് മീൻ ബൈ അട്മയ? പ്രൈസ്. അട്മയ, ഗ്രേഷ്യസ്ലി, പൊളൈറ്റ് ആൻഡ് പ്ലസന്റ് മാനർ, സന്തോഷം നിറഞ്ഞ ലാളിത്യത്തോടെ. ചബി, കഴുത്തിരണ്ട. ഗോൾഡ് ബ്രൊക്കേഡ്, ഗോൾഡ് എംബ്രോയിഡറി ചെയ്ത വസ്ത്രം. സോ അട്മയർ, പ്രൈസ്, വളരെ നിശബ്ദമായിട്ട് പ്രൈസ് ചെയ്ത് പുകഴ്ത്തി. കൊള്ളാം, നല്ലൊരു തടിച്ച കുഞ്ഞ്. പക്ഷേ അത് ശാന്തമായിട്ട് കിടന്നുറങ്ങുകയാണ്. സ്വർണ്ണ എംബ്രോയിഡറി ചെയ്ത വസ്ത്രങ്ങൾ ധരിച്ച് ഒരു കൊച്ചു രാജാവിനെ പോലെ. Then the husband called his wife over. He told her to sit on a straw mat. Then the husband called his wife over. He told her to sit on a straw mat. Without a word, he sat down on her lap, the little famished one, bowing deeply before her. The woman leaned over with astonishment and drew back the covering in which the child was wrapped. It appeared to her in all its skull-tonic horror. She gave a cry of immense pity, then pressed the baby to her heart, giving it the breast. Then with a gesture of modesty, she brought forward a flap of her robe over the milk-swollen breast and poor gluttonous infant suckling there. See the difference between the attitude of the other women. In the Anatolian camp, when they see the gluttonous baby, when they see the frightening figure of that baby, they cried out loudly and they drew him away. ഈ ഒരു സ്കൽട്ടോണിക് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഫിഗർ കണ്ടു കഴിഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ അനറ്റോളിയൻ ഗ്രാമത്തിലുള്ള സ്ത്രീകൾ എന്താ ചെയ്തത്? ദേ ഡ്രൂ ഹിം മിക്കലി എവേ ആൻഡ് asked him not to come there anymore. ഇനി അവിടെ വരികയേ വേണ്ടെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. And what did the Chinaman's wife do to the baby? She was also astonished. She was also surprised. She also cried out loudly, but that cry was out of pity for the baby. And after showing pity, what did the Chinaman's wife do? She pressed the baby to her heart, started to give it breast. Started to breastfeed the baby. So let's come to a paragraph once again. Then the husband called his wife over. He told her to sit on a straw mat. Without a word, he sat down on her lap, the little famished one, bowing deeply before her. The woman leaned over with astonishment and drew back the covering in which the child was wrapped. It appeared to her in all its skull-tonic horror. She gave a cry of immense pity, then pressed the baby to his heart, giving it the breast. Then with a gesture of modesty, she brought forward a flap of her robe over the milk-swollen breast and the poor gluttonous infant suckling there. So, here in this last paragraph, husband reached his wife. He told her the situation. He asked her to sit on a straw mat. ഒരു കയറ്റുപായിൽ ഇരിക്കാൻ പറഞ്ഞു. Without a baby, what did he do? He placed on her lap that little famished, that hungry child. So without any word, she placed on her lap that famished child, bowing deeply. She had to bow down. Chinaman had to bend down so much to place that baby on her lap. On seeing the baby, he became surprised. On seeing this, Chinaman's wife became surprised, and he became much surprised. She became much surprised, more surprised, when she drew back the cover. And what did she see? The skelettonic figure of that baby. അപ്പോൾ ഒന്നും പറയാതെ ആ കുഞ്ഞിനെ എടുത്ത് ആ ചൈനക്കാരൻ എന്ത് ചെയ്യുക? ആ അമ്മയുടെ തൻ്റെ ഭാര്യയുടെ മടിയിലേക്ക് വെക്കുക. ഒത്തിരി അങ്ങനെ ഭാര്യയുടെ മടിയിലേക്ക് വെക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി ഒത്തിരി കുനിയേണ്ടി വന്നു. His wife was surprised, astonished, and he was much astonished when he pulled that cover away, pulled that cover away, drew back that cover. അവർ ഭയങ്കരമായിട്ട് അത്ഭുതപ്പെട്ടു. എപ്പോഴ് ആ ഒരു കവറ് ഡ്രൂ ബാക്ക് ചെയ്തപ്പോൾ, ആ പുതപ്പൊന്ന് മാറ്റിയപ്പോൾ, which the child was wrapped, the child was covered. When he drew back the covering, ആ പുതപ്പ് മാറ്റിയപ്പോൾ, with which the child was covered, കുഞ്ഞിനെ പുതപ്പിച്ച ആ പുതപ്പെടുത്ത് മാറ്റിയപ്പോൾ അവർ അത്ഭുതപ്പെട്ടു. Why? Because she saw the skelettonic figure of that baby. ആ ഒരു അസ്ഥിപഞ്ജരമായ ആ ശരീരം ആ അമ്മ കണ്ടു. She gave a cry of immense pity. What is the difference between those two cries? Here it is a cry of immense pity. Earlier it was a cry of horror. In the Anatolian village, the cry of the woman was one of horror. അനറ്റോളിയൻ ഗ്രാമത്തിൽ ചെന്ന് കഴിഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ ആ കരച്ചിലെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഒരു ഭയത്തിൻ്റെ കരച്ചിലാണെങ്കിൽ, ഇറ്റ് ഇസ് എ ക്രൈ ഓഫ് പിറ്റി. ഹിയർ ഇറ്റ് ഇസ് എ ക്രൈ ഓഫ് പിറ്റി. And then she pressed the baby to her heart and started to breastfeed it. അമ്മഞ്ഞപ്പാൽ കൊടുക്കാനായിട്ട് തുടങ്ങി. Then with a gesture of modesty, to show in a polite manner, what did she do? She covered the milk swollen breast, അമഞ്ഞപ്പാൽ നിറഞ്ഞ ആ മാറിടം, and the poor gluttonous infant, വിശന്നാർത്തി പൂണ്ട ആ കുഞ്ഞിനെയും എന്ത് ചെയ്ത്? she covered with a flap of her robe. Robe means her dress. Flap of her robe. See, the meaning is here. What do you mean by flap? കൊന്തല എന്ന് നമ്മൾ പറയും, പീസ് ഓഫ് ക്ലോത്ത്, പുറംപാളി, യൂസ് ഫോർ കവറിങ് ഓർ ക്ലോസിങ് തിങ്സ്. സോ with a piece of her dress, she covered her breast. She covered the infant who was sucking milk, was drinking milk. അപ്പോൾ ഒരല്പം എളിമയോടുകൂടി എന്ത് ചെയ്ത് തൻ്റെ ആ വസ്ത്രാഞ്ചലം ഉപയോഗിച്ച് തൻ്റെ മാറിടവും അതിവിശന്ന വിശന്നു വലഞ്ഞ ആ ഒരു കുഞ്ഞിനെയും എന്ത് ചെയ്തു? അവർ പൊതിഞ്ഞു. സോ this is all about the story. Let us write one. How did the child appear to Michele? How did Chinaman's child appear to Michele? How did Chinaman's child appear to Michele? And what's the answer? It is a fat or it was a chubby baby, it was a fat baby, and it was sleeping peacefully, and it is covered with gold brocade cloth, and it looks like a king. So again, what about the next question? When Chinaman told his wife about the situation, how did she respond? എങ്ങനെയാ പ്രതികരിച്ചത് ഈ ഒരു അവസ്ഥ തൻ്റെ ഭാര്യയെ അറിയിച്ചപ്പോൾ? എങ്ങനെയാ പ്രതികരിച്ചത്? She leaned over with astonishment, drew back the covering in which the child was wrapped. It appeared to her in all its skeletonic horror. She gave a cry of immense pity, then pressed the baby to her heart, started to give milk. Play. So she was astonished on hearing the demand. Then she uncovered the child. She was very much surprised, and she was filled with pity for that skeletonic figure of that baby, and she pressed that baby against her heart and started to breastfeed it. അമഞ്ഞ പാല് കൊടുക്കാനായിട്ട് തുടങ്ങി. So this is the story. Go through the watch the two videos, watch those two videos, and tell me, ask me if you have any doubts. So we shall see in the next class. Till then, goodbye.